4 years after Hurricane Katrina. Survivors will tell you,
I'm gonna die. The water is steady rising in the attic.
Where's FEMA? Where's the mail?
the events of that day and the days after were both horrifying and haunting.
It was walking on dead bodies, and we actually saw a man who was holding his daughter in his hand, and she just died in his hand. So it made me feel bad, and I started crying, and I started worrying about my little sisters and brothers.
How does a young person process that kind of stuff, seeing things like that?
At the time, I didn't want to process it.
But for these New Orleans high school students, the lingering scar of Hurricane Katrina isn't what happened 4 years ago, it's what hasn't happened 4 years later.
I live in the 9th Ward. I have to go to school, travel 7 miles every day, and I see the 9th Ward is still the same.
In fact, just 2,600 of the 14,000 residents who lived in the lower 9th Ward before Katrina have returned. While much of New Orleans is getting back to normal, the areas hardest hit still struggle, especially the children.
It makes me mad sometimes.
Experts say getting over the mental trauma of a disaster like Hurricane Katrina normally takes about 3 years. But as New Orleans closes in on a 4th anniversary, health officials believe it could take children and adults here 3 times longer to heal from their psychological wounds.
Our young people here in New Orleans were forced to face a very adult situation, and it's had some consequences.
Never mind, we got it.
4 years ago, we first met Dr. Juliette Saucy, director of New Orleans EMS, outside the city's convention center. She and her team ankle deep in water, chest deep in a healthcare system that was overwhelmed and broken. Today, she says, it's the mental health system that's busted, and children here are paying for it.
A lot of experimenting with substance abuse, a lot of self-medication, a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs.
According to a 2007 study, it's estimated that there are 45,000 children in the city that have some kind of mental health problem. This year alone, there have been 40 suicides among adults and children, the youngest person 11 years old.
Anybody that knows anything about children knows that the best case scenario is to have children in a supportive environment for any kind of treatment.
My name is Tyrone Smith and I am 13 years old.
We first met an emotional Tyrone Smith 7 days after he was forced to evacuate to Baton Rouge.
And I have lost my house, my dogs. It's just been horrible.
Now a junior in high school, Tyrone credits his parents and counseling for helping him.
Katrina changed everything in an instant.
That's a tough lesson for a kid to learn.
Yep, but I've learned it, so now I value everything.
Earlier this year, the Smiths moved back to their home, which was once under 5 feet of water.
So how's life for you now?
Great. Back with my family, back with my friends, made new friends.
Back home, in a city that is slowly putting the pieces back together. Byron Pitts, CBS News, New Orleans.